Hello and welcome. You're watching We the People. I'm Rishika Barua. There are new rules for schools across the country. The central government has launched the new curriculum framework for school students under the new education policy that came into play in 2020. All of these changes, which I will elaborate on shortly, are expected to come into force from next year. So what are the major changes? Board exams will now be held twice a year for classes 10 and 12. Students can pick best scores from either of these board exams. There are going to be 2 compulsory Indian languages in classes 9 and 10. These compulsory Indian languages are then going to be carried forward to classes 11 and 12 as well. Students, of course, will now have the flexibility to pick subjects across streams. So there are going to be no hard separations as far as arts, science or commerce is concerned. All of this starting next year. Now, all the new education guidelines are as per the NEP, the new education policy that came into force in 2020. The curriculum, remember, this is very important, is all advisory as far as the central government is concerned. States individually are free to accept or reject the recommendations that have been made by the centre. Remember, education is a concurrent list subject, which essentially means that both the parliament, the centre, as well as different states can take their own decisions to legislate on curriculum or examination schedule. On We the People tonight, we ask, there are more exams, more languages and more flexibility that is being given to our students. Are the new rules for schools a boon or a bane? Joining me today is an audience which comprises of class 10 and 12 students. We also have teachers and parents with us in the audience. Thank you all very much for being with us in the NDTV studios. Also joining us on the show, Dr. Vijay Datta. He's the principal of Modern School, Barakamba Road in Delhi. Sudha Acharya, she's the principal of ITL School in Dwarka. We have Adarsh Khandelwal, the founder of Collegify. Madhvi Jadhav, the CEO and co-founder of ThatMate, a mental health platform for students. And Arjun Bahadur, the lead of Life Skills Collaboratives, Sattva Consulting. He has 18 years of experience in the education space and is working with not-for-profit schools in about 4 states. So will give us a good perspective on what rural India really thinks of this as well. Thank you all very much for joining us. But like I said, this is a story that concerns the students. So why not let's just hear from the students on what they think of these changes. We have a young audience, class 10 and 12 students. Go ahead. Keep sitting. Go ahead. Make your point.
So my question was that in the NEP, it states that there will be 2 board exams for the students in class 10th and 12th. But contradictory to that, they have said that there will be exams held in only class 2nd, 5th and 8th. So they're saying that they're putting the children into the habit of having exams on yearly intervals, but immediately after they come into the class 10th, they are being put into the habit of having exams every two times in 1 year. So how are they going to adapt according to this? Okay,
so you're saying it is a pressure box for a pressure situation for kids. Go ahead. Some of the other children also had a point of view.
There are already a lot of exams in school, be it periodic assessments or be it tuition exams. And already there is a lot of pressure provided by teachers in schools, by parents, by tuition teachers. So I guess making it one board at the end of the year would be better for the students as well.
Okay. Anyone else?
So as we know that 2 boards would be held in a single year, so it means that the complete syllabus should be done in a short span of time. Right. So it would put the kids and the teachers both in very much pressure, so they would not be able to complete it.
Okay, so you're saying there'd be a pressure to complete the curriculum. You also had a question.
According to me, there's a lot of stress within the students of the tuition teachers, their school teachers, their parents, and the expectations their parents or teachers have from them. So until and unless they do not have a great resilience quality, maybe, they would not be able to manage all the stress, and in the end, it will probably affect their mental health as well.
All right. We have a class 12. You're a class 12 student as well. You had a point of view.
So as we know, class 12 students have to prepare for the CUET exams now.
Yeah.
So first the board in September, then in March, and then for the CUET preparations. That's too much pressure and a tight schedule for us. So that's not apt.
Okay. You also had a point.
Is this wise to have 2 board exams in 1 year? Like, is it wise to manage
So
them?
you all are all stressed about the 2 board exams, but there's also the flexibility of choosing between the best marks. So there is something in it for everybody, I guess. But I think the first reaction really clearly has been that students are pretty stressed on how they are going to navigate these two board exams. I'm going to come back to our very enterprising audience in just a bit, but let me go across to panel. Dr. Vijay Datta, I think we've heard from a majority of students, and I'm sure that this is a sample set that represents what most students across the country are feeling right now. A bit of pressure given the fact that they're going to expected to be giving these two board exams, even though there's a lot of flexibility that the new systems have put in place. How are you looking at it?
Well, greetings, everyone. First of all, let me tell you that there is not going to be too many exams. The school principals will definitely look at reducing some of your periodic tests and unit tests. And let me explain and de-stress you by giving you an example of an all-rounder. If he is to be assessed for his performance over the year based on one test that he plays, one day match that he plays, or he gets two chances of, say, 2020, he gets two chances to bet twice and then to choose which is better of the two. Which would be of the two situations better, where he gets two chances and where his score is better, he retains that score. So how you look at the thing makes all the difference. It's not about just the students. In fact, it's the test of the entire teaching learning transaction.
Right.
And even the teachers and the principals would like the students to do well and be not stressed. We like to assess, not make an assessment of learning, but assessment for learning. So we would know where we need to improve ourselves, where children find it difficult. So it is not to be stressed about at all. That's what I feel.
Okay. I think, what you've said will hopefully resonate with a lot of our students over here who are clearly at the moment, not looking at the flexibility. Nobody's even actually spoken about, the different streams that they're going to allow to be choose from. They're just so stressed about the fact that there's one more exam that's been added to the calendar. Dr. Sudha Acharya, do you agree with what Dr. Datta said? As a principal of a school, do you believe that the onus is now going to be on institutions on how they can adapt to the new policy, take the best from it by alleviating stress of the students, which, they very clearly expressed?
Good evening. Of course, I agree with Dr. Vijay Datta, what he said. Children are getting stressed listening about two board exams. I must advise children, it is not two board exams you are immediately approaching to. Your board exam will be as usual at the end of the year as you gave, and then you are getting another opportunity. There is flexibility. If you want to improve your score in maths or in physics or in business studies, so we have another exam with essential repeat. So this year also, some of the students, they wanted to improve their score. So they were sitting for the second time and they got that score. But I understand children's apprehension.
Yes.
That CUET board exam, and one child was saying about 3, 5, 8. I must clarify that. This is not board exam. 5 and 8 are assessment of core concepts.
No, I think it's about the habit of giving exams. On one side, you're trying to take away the pressure in the formative years, and then you're really building it up in the end. I think that's the larger point. But, I want to just move beyond the exam pressure point, because this new policy has a lot of other important points I think that we need to touch upon as well. And one of the key things, which is I think a paradigm shift in the education system, is the fact that we no longer have a hard segregation between streams. So there's no longer a hard segregation between arts, science and commerce, which is traditionally how our education system has been geared. Adarsh Khandelwal is someone who's at the helm of affairs as far as college admissions are concerned, and that's really the end to which all of this conversations is just a means. How do you look at these developments? Do you think that this is going to add to confusion, but eventually it will actually empower students to, pursue subjects on the basis of what their true interests are?
Greetings, everyone. So it's interesting to see the developments which are ongoing. From a perspective of more examinations, that is something which, a student has to deal with a lot more now. Parents are the decision makers. They will get the students to take the exam twice to improve. Even if you get a 92%, you will be asked to take the exam once again to see if the 92 can become 98. Then you have to take the CUETs. Then you have to take other entrance exams for your IITs, for your law entrance and everything else, right? So are we really moving towards a all exam and a exam centric scenario? All of grade 12 goes in just exams and more exams instead of, one side we are talking about holistic development, one side we are talking about skill building. Obviously, this change from the outside, I see a lot of stress coming among students because parents will insist kids to write the exam multiple times to just get the 98 to a 99, right? So parents require the bragging rights in our country, right? The 99% mark is the factor here that my child got a 99.
Yes.
So therefore, the student will go through more anxiety, more stress. On the other side, I see some very good things coming the way, right? US education which is primarily on interdisciplinary skill set. We are talking about, humanities and science coming as a combination, students getting to do a lot more of explorations within the world. The career is a lot about not only taking one stream. Today is a time where we are not talking about being jack of all trade or master of none, right? It is primarily adding more skill sets. So, it is going to take its own time to shape up and evolve. But yes, I mean, with the coaching and with, more pressure coming on the student, two examination rule will definitely, no matter even if the school, management. And see, with the private schools, there is a lot more easy scenario, right? They have a lot more resources available to them compared to a public school, right? So I feel that scenario is a little challenging when it comes to, and you see, we are talking about IQ and EQ, right? So we need to also develop an EQ among the kids.
I think Adarsh Khandelwal, you raised a very important point there, that we're often very guilty of looking at this from an urban point of view. Let's, like I said at the very outset, this is what the central government has recommended. So, there are different states that are going to look at this differently. We already have states that have said that they are not going to, follow the NEP. There are states that want to build their own, education curriculum. We'll have that state-wise graphic breakup as well on our screens for the benefit of our viewers. So there's going to be a lot of chaos in a certain sense because there is no one-size-fits-all. But how does this really play out as far as schools in rural India are concerned, as far as education in rural India is concerned? Arjun Bahadur is on the show and he lends an important perspective in terms of looking at this holistically. Arjun, what do you think? I mean, this policy on paper has many merits and demerits which students have already voiced. But how do you look at this impacting India as a whole?
Good evening, everyone, and thanks, Rishika, for having me. Firstly, I think I want to say that we shouldn't look at these policies as individual policies. I think they are part of an overarching assessment reform agenda that the government is driving. And I think, for me, the way I have understood this sits very well with the overarching agenda of the education reform and within that the assessment reform. I think there are multiple factors that and you've highlighted some very key aspects. Right? I think whether the center recommends and the states adopt is going to be something that we'll find out eventually. But I think one of the things that I feel why these are all positive steps, I think one, it puts the choice in the hands of the students. A lot more than what it did in the past. The two-exam policy as a choice for students is something that will allow them to work with, I have to take 6 subjects. I can choose to take 3 now, 3 later. I can choose to pick 1 or 2 that I want to improve upon. For me, I think it should take away the stress of that one exam that I have to give at the end of class 12. And that's going to make or break my score. I also think that some considerations that probably need to be done. One, I think we need to keep the child at the center of all this. And I think as states choose to make these decisions, the states that we work with, that I have the opportunity of working with in the last 3 years, seem to be very positive towards building the skills that the students should have to be able to make these choices. And we call them life skills, we can call them 21st century skills. I heard one of the girls in the audience talk about resilience, and I'm so happy to hear her talk about that. And I don't think that I think it's an opportunity to build skills like resilience, build skills that enable children to make the right choices. So I think that needs to be in the center.
Right. You raised a very, very important point when you said that, are the children really at the center of what the government is trying to do here? And to talk a little more about, the mental health perspective, and I think that's something which is very, very important. We want to ensure that, we are not building quota factories out of schools. I think that's a story that we've reported on here at NDTV extensively. Madhvi Jadhav is with us, I beg your pardon. Madhvi, as somebody who works in the mental health space with students, and you work with class 10 and 12 students as well, tell us anecdotally, we've heard from students, but tell us anecdotally what it has been like for students in the post-pandemic space, even dealing with just one set of exams right now.
Yeah. Thank you, Rishika, for having me here. I'll start off with some stats that we have seen. During the month of, January to March, the number of minutes spent on our app and the number of visitors on our app seeking counseling increases 3 times. That talks a lot about how stressed these students are. And this is just one board exam that we have. Board exams are a milestone in everyone's life. This is what we have been ingrained by our parents, our neighbors, and our teachers, and everyone around us. And this makes the students a lot of stressed about, what will happen? What if I'm not performing well? They call us and they talk about us like, there is no internet, we can't go out. Our parents are stressing us a lot. And we have seen that these students are stressed more, not because of the exam pressure, but because of their parental pressure. And parents are stressed because, of the peer pressure of other parents, because they have to, somebody
it's a vicious
said they have
circle.
Yeah, it's a vicious circle.
Okay.
And nobody's teaching. So we are being asked when we are in 10th and 12th, how are your studies going? Are you doing really well? Nobody asks us, how are you out dealing with your stress? How are you managing time? And when we say that, managing stress, managing time, this all comes, these things are not taught. And when this piles up, students break down. And then we discuss stories of students breaking down or who are not doing well. But we are not discussing that, we need to help the students by proper guidance. Proper guidance needs to be
absolutely. I think it's really important that you talk about how proper guidance is also something perhaps that needs to be put into policy. You have to give students the tools to be able to cope with change, because, like you said, Madhvi, when we were speaking earlier, the change is always stressful, and there's so much that is changing as far as, the education landscape is concerned. We also have parents and teachers with us in the audience. If you could just pass the mic along. Ma'am, you're a parent and a teacher, right?
Yes.
What do you make of these changes?
Actually, as Dr. Vijay Datta, he was saying that we are going to work on certain set of exams, like we are going to reduce the pressure. But I think that will not be a solution for a very simple reason, because parental pressure will be there. Like, if new exam pattern is coming, are we giving enough opportunity, enough, experience to the child that this is the pattern of the question that will be, coming, and you have to be prepared for the same.
Sure.
And then secondly, it is like skill development of children. I totally agree, it is very, very important. Like, we are basically working on rote learning, but what about skill development? If yes, of course, these students are not being, treated as guinea pig. As it has been experienced in past also, like, first batch is always treated as a guinea pigs.
Yes.
So again, they will be in a very different position, stress, anxiety, everything they have to face.
Sure.
So I think so if new thing is coming, it has to be set in a proper parameter and in the benefit of these students. That is very essential.
So here is the teacher as well. So go ahead.
Here we in the competitive examination system, we are having 2 exams.
Competitive exams.
Competitive exam.
Right,
in JEE Mains, we are having 2 exams. That is basically in the month of January, and one is in the month of April. And if we are going to conduct the 2 board exam also, so it will be a big question on the time management and the scheduling system. Already we are finding very difficult to judge the performance of the student on the assessment basis, because we are never analyze what is the result. It is only the paperwork which we are doing. Basically, student is in a big crunch. Now here the coaching industry and the school industry are having a big conflict. Now they are forcing the students to go in their schedule, and we are trying to bring the student back to the
I
school
think,
system.
this point on competitive exams is a really important one, and I will, get the conversation back to also talk about the flexibility of streams, because we have some students here who'd like to address that, and I'm going to address that in just a moment. But Dr. Vijay Datta, do you just want to take on the concern that's been voiced by teachers? As far as scheduling and just setting school calendar is concerned, that's one aspect of it, and you may alleviate stress of students by simplifying that calendar. But what about students who are preparing for competitive exams? I mean, look at the kind of pressure students who are preparing for engineering, medical entrances are. There are now law entrances, there's CUET. I mean, adding another exam into the mix isn't good news for anybody.
Yeah, I'd like to definitely come in at this point and say, before I do what I have to say, that it is slightly premature. We are jumping the gun a bit, and we must wait for NCERT, CBSE and the state boards to spell out the ground rules. But having said this, let me say what they are missing out is that they will have the choice to choose between the two scores. And I feel this is actually a boon for a sports person, somebody who gets unwell on a particular day, or has another exam coinciding with the boards. It used to happen, the foreign studies, it happens many a times. They want to focus on another thing. Sportsmen have tournaments clashing at that time. So it rather takes away that pressure that it is not a one-time thing. You can choose between the two. So they must focus on this aspect more.
I think students need to really think about this, in terms of a good balance between the pros and cons, because like Dr. Datta is saying, it's also going to give you an opportunity. It's not, supposing you're sick on a particular day that you're writing your exam, at least you have another shot. It's not just boiling down to those hours. But, like I said, the flexibility angle is interesting. Are any of you excited about mixing streams going forward, or are you still very nervous about it? Go ahead.
I feel that it is a good thing that we can mix and match between the different subjects, because it will also allow us to, it will open more opportunities for us. We don't have to stick to only one subject and just prepare for that exam.
Right.
We can go into different career options as well.
Sure. Adarsh Khandelwal, do you want to come in here? The mixing of streams, this is going to be a brand new thing. But as we know, there are preconditions when you apply for certain courses. Those courses also require certain prerequisites. So is there going to have to be a more overall rethink as far as the flexibility of streams is concerned?
The flexibility is definitely brilliant, because when we speak to students and when they reach out to us, a lot of them are willing to study psychology and an engineering mix. And the parental pressure, right, is primarily promoting students to go towards medicine and the mainstream. But the streams are really evolving. Today, you require students to have multi-skill sets when they go to a job. They have to also understand the psych before they sort of go into the coding side of the things. However, it's very important to counsel the family. See, with this change, the parents also have to change the mindset, right? And they have to also broaden their mindset of leaving the traditional and accepting the new.
I have a parent here who also wants to address one of the other important aspects of this policy, which is languages. Ma'am, you had a question.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Ma'am, I'm a parent of a child who is in class 9th this year, and he will be appearing for his boards exam next year. He dropped Hindi and he took French as a 5th subject in his class. Now, all of a sudden, if he has to choose between two languages, and French is what is studying from the 4th standard, and Hindi studied for only 1 year. Now, again, he has to go back to Hindi language. So his boards exams results would definitely affect.
Sudha Acharya, do you want to come in here? Like I said, it's going to be case by case, and there are going to be a lot of complications with this language now coming into the mix, where one Indian language is compulsory in 11th and 12th. How are you looking at this?
Yeah, I must come in. I must tell the mother who was talking. 9th class, actually registration is going on. She should not have any apprehension. Her child would be appearing in French only, not going back to Hindi. It is not so sudden, ma'am. it is with English and French and German our students are having. Saying that 11, 12, as we are hearing that two languages, one language and one Indian language, I have my apprehension, because in class 11, 12, children generally they focus on core subjects on which they are going to make their career. So whether it is physics, chemistry, maths, or business studies, economics and accountancy, or philosophy, geography, whatever may be, they are focusing on the core concept, clarity, understanding. We are talking about application part, competency based, and telling them to do two languages will put on pressure definitely.
Right.
Where I have my apprehension, bringing in one more language, and more so Indian language. In case like Delhi, finally we have to limit to English and Hindi,
right?
Because we are metro cities. There are the classrooms.
But you know, there's a flip side to the language question as well. Arjun Bhadar, if I can just bring you into the conversation very quickly, and I have just 30 seconds on the show. How do you look at this whole compulsory language thing? Do you think it will actually be a good thing for a certain section of students?
So I think it's an interesting point everybody makes, and I think it will impact differently to people in metros versus how it impacts people in rural backgrounds, and people who work in study in remote areas where English and Hindi are not the key languages, and there is an added stress of learning an international language, which for them English often is. And so I think it will benefit certainly students who work who are studying in areas where their primary mode of language is the local language in the area. So I think these are all questions that will need to be, and I agree with Dr. Datta, I think they're all jumping the gun here. I think we need to wait to see how this unfolds. Right. And I think every decision that impacts the systemic change will require elements that impact India as a diverse country.
Absolutely. There is no one size that fits all as far as India is concerned when it comes to anything, and certainly not our education system. We've just about scratched the surface of a very, very important topic, one that we will continue to pick up and highlight here on We the People as well. Thank you all very much to our panelists and our lovely audience for joining us on this edition of We the People. Good night and thanks for watching.